because the discussions of anti-Semitism today are very often very dark and depressing or in any form of bigotry. It's like, here's this thing and it's really bad, and let's talk really more about how bad it is and how bad it has been and how bad it's going to get. And I like to also talk about things that you can do about it. And Britain's going to talk about that in the context of corporate responsibility, in the context of companies and policymakers, and also individuals, but I'm going to focus on what people can do if this is the sort of thing that you want to do. So when I encounter, an anti-Semite photoshopping me into a concentration camp or a gas chamber or using an anti-Jewish slur, an anti-Jewish stereotype against me, I have particular responses. Most of the time, I'll just ignore it. They want attention. It's not worth it. But sometimes it's worth highlighting so that people can see it. I have a lot of followers on Twitter, many from all walks of life, Jews, Christians, Muslims, atheists, and many of them may not have encountered or realized that anti-Semitism is a real force today. And by highlighting it, I'm able to make them aware of it. But it's challenging because talking about bigotry is a difficult conversation because it can be dark, it can be depressing, and people don't really want that in their social media timelines and in their ecosystems because it dampens your day. And so if I just see a racist thing and I say, oh my God, that's so racist, I'm really angry, and something to this effect, it will be shared on social media by people who already agree with me and are already just as angry as I am about that thing. But it won't really reach people for whom this isn't already a reality and for whom this isn't already an issue. So I tried to figure out a way, how can I make people actually want to share anti-Semitism on Twitter, which is a difficult challenge. But I'll give you an example from today. So just this morning, actually late last night, I get a tweet from somebody saying, Trump has won, the Jewish media, we're going to shut it down, and you'll be the first to be ovened Jew, right? And then they have a picture of like an anti-Semitic Jewish caricature. And so if you look at my Twitter feed now, and say you're bored with hearing me here, you can look me up on your phone, and you will discover, not that anyone would ever do such a thing, but if you look and see what I did there, I excerpted the tweet, and I said to them, I don't mean to be a grammar Nazi or anything, but ovened is not a real verb, right? And then this got retweeted a lot of times, and the person got ridiculed a lot of times. And surprise, if you go look at this, the guy is still there. Twitter has not gotten rid of his account. I don't know how long that will last. But he deleted that tweet because he was tired of getting all of the mockery that was coming his way for his failed attempt to rile me up. And one of the things to understand, so this is what's going on here. What you need to understand is what these trolls do. Some of them actually believe these things that they tweet at you about Jews, but a lot of them are nihilists. A lot of them are just nasty internet users who know that they can unnerve Jews, they can make them afraid, they can make them scared, and they can make them withdraw from the discourse, say go off Twitter, or be afraid to write about certain subjects if they abuse them enough. But they don't actually believe these things, and what they're trying to do is turn this sort of trolling dynamic on you and make you uncomfortable. So if you refuse to take the bait and turn it around on them, right, they don't know what to do, and in fact, they don't like it when it's turned on them, and they will often delete their own original provocation. Another example, someone tweeted at me, why are Jews so weak and bad at sports? Now, does this guy actually believe it? I doubt it. He just thought it would get me angry. But what it actually was a fastball down the middle. And so I just excerpted his tweet and said, well, of course Jews don't really participate in athletics. That's what we use to divert the energy of the Gentiles while we take over the systems of power. So, as you can see, I just have, and the more you do this to me, the more you tweet this sort of abuse at me, the more you're giving me ammunition, because what happens there is that lots of people found that funny, just like you, and they clicked retweet really quickly because it wasn't dark, it wasn't depressing. But what they actually did was get deputized and turned into informal educators about anti-Semitism without realizing it. Which brings us to the infamous parentheses, which is these triple parentheses that anti-Semites were using, white supremacists were using on Twitter to identify Jewish journalists, to call other people to troll them, and in general just to unnerve Jews, say like, you tweet something we don't like, instead of engaging with your argument, we'll just say Rosenberg in parentheses to try to make you afraid. And I thought this was kind of silly, and so did Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, who put 3 parentheses around his name. And I thought, this is a good idea. I did the same thing. And then I tweeted, this would be fun if other people did it. So I said, if you want to show solidarity with Jews who are being harassed and mess with Twitter's Nazis, just put 3 parentheses around their name and it'll become entirely useless because everyone will have them. And then I logged off for Shabbat. And I don't use Twitter on Shabbat. And I highly recommend, even if you don't keep Shabbat, good plan. So I log off for Shabbat. I come back after Shabbat, and like thousands of people have these parentheses around them. I have Muslim followers, a Muslim follower of mine named Fahim, who writes back and says, he's got 3 parentheses around his name, Fahim, and he's like, oh man, I'm Muslim. This is going to really confuse them. Yeah. And it's a way, and so that's step one, because we took this tool of harassment away from them. Now no one can use it, and today no one gets harassed with this particular tool anymore because it's entirely useless. But it did something else, which is after this took off, I wrote an explainer piece for Tablet where I work, saying what this symbol meant and how we've subverted it. So in case you're seeing it, this is what it means. And then I track when people share my own stuff on social media to see where it's going, what people are saying about it. And a lot of other people wrote a very similar piece in much bigger, more prominent websites, at Vox, at Slate, at the New York Times did a piece. But I followed my particular explainer, and I saw lots of people tweeting it because people were asking them, why do you have parentheses around your name? And people I've never met and never heard of, and we've never interacted, even on Twitter, are saying, well, here's an article that explains it. And I'm only seeing mine, but there are, remember, dozens of these, so there are probably many more such interactions happening, which means all these people who put these parentheses about their name, again, became educators on anti-Semitism. And that's my goal. My goal is to find ways to empower people to fight back and empower people to educate and not feel like it's a dark and depressing endeavor, but actually that you can do it and you can do it with joy. It doesn't work for everyone, and some people this can be very emotionally difficult, and if it is, you shouldn't do it, and I advise you to disengage. But for a lot of people, it can be very empowering. I talked to a retreat this past weekend of Muslim leaders who are dealing with similar stuff as Jews are right now, and all of this stuff similarly applies to them, and like conspiracies about Sharia law. And they felt it was very helpful to them because all the time they're being told that, batten down the hatches, and they're told that they need to deal with these things in a political way, and it's true. But there are also ways to show solidarity online in the systems that we inhabit today. And I think that that's really important for all of us, regardless of what companies and policymakers do. Thank you.
Thank you.